right? Like, if I can be more perfect, then that causes him less suffering.
Yeah.
Don't you think that? Like, did you think that when you were younger? Like, I could be more perfect, and then if I do everything perfectly, then it's like Jesus has a little bit less pain.
Yep.
And I don't want to be the one to cause him pain.
No, it's not how it works.
But that isn't how it works.
No. But I didn't know that until I started figuring it out through the Spirit. And one of the clues is like, how would I know? Because I remember when I was in pain, suffering before my experience, I remember going, well, what does this mean when King Benjamin says this in chapter 4 and verse 10 and 11? But I'm going to start with 11 actually this time, because we already talked about repenting and forsaking our sins. But he said, as you have come to the knowledge of the glory of God, that you have known of his goodness and have tasted of his love and have received a remission of your sins, which causeth, here's the qualifier here, such exceedingly great joys in your souls. And that's when I said to myself, you don't have joy. You haven't repented, Melanie, because you're not having this joy. That was a huge clue for me.
Right, because but you were literally miserable.
I was.
So what is the opposite of joy? Is it misery?
This is Lori Vallow.
Is it misery? Like, I hate my life. Yep. This isn't going right. What am I doing here? This has all gone awry. That's how I felt in my life. Like, this life has gone awry. Like, this is not happening. This is out of control, and I can't handle this, and this is not how it was supposed to go, and this is not what I signed up for. Like, I was thinking all those things, and not being accountable, like you were saying, like not taking responsibility. Like, you know what? I made this choice, and this was actually a consequence of this, but it was part of what I designed before I came to this life. So that I could learn those kinds of valuable lessons. So I tend to be now more like when something goes wrong, because things still go wrong, right? And I tend to be like, what do I need to learn from this? What's this experience about? What do I need to learn from this so that I can overcome it quicker instead of taking 10 years, of being miserable, and have joy? How can I learn from this so that I can move on and have joy all the time?
What you're learning is to trust in your journey. That's what I felt as you started to trust. And I orchestrated this because before we were like, why does our life stink so badly? We must have done something really bad. Like, what is going on here? But then, now that we have more light and understanding, we're thinking, oh, that was perfect. That's perfectly what I needed.
Right, because you can look back. I can even look back at my ex-husband and think of all the misery like that he caused in my mind at the time, which I still have to say his point was to cause misery, but his job was to cause me misery. But I could have had joy that whole time. But I look back on it now and think that was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed, because I needed to learn a lot of valuable lessons out of that. And when you are miserable, and you don't understand it, like we tend to blame God. Right? Like, why did you do this to me? Why did you put me here? This is a horrible situation. And whether we put ourselves in that situation or not, the answer is the same. He's like, you designed this. You chose these challenges. You chose these trials because you know what you needed to become successful. And you know what you needed to overcome in this life so that you could move on and have eternal progression.
Exactly. And he wants us to learn that you can do this with me. And then he wants us, I like what you said, to feel successful, because anytime we're obedient, we feel so happy. There's something happy.
Joy does come from obedience. There is joy. There is joy in obedience. And I love that about Heavenly Father. I think, you grow up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you think it's so restrictive, right? You think your life, especially as a teenager, right? You think your life is so restrictive. You can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. But you learn over time that through that obedience comes that joy, because then you're not hard on yourself. And it's not even you, it's the dark ones who are telling you, oh, you messed that up. It's over for you. You're done. You're done. I told that to the 16-year-olds I was teaching, and I said, raise your hand if you feel like you've done something so wrong that it's over and you're done. And they all raised their hand. And there was like 22 of them. And they all raised their hand that they felt like at 16, they had already done something that's so wrong that they're done. And I explained to them the atonement. and what it really meant, and what that he's paid for everything you've ever done or everything you're gonna do, and that all he wants you to do is say you're sorry and do better the next day and move on, because those are experiences that you're having. And these kids did not understand that concept, and they were, the perfectionism that we put on our kids today is really bad.
Absolutely.
It's hard for them. And so we thought it was restrictive, but really, if you are obedient to those commandments and you're able to be obedient to those commandments, then you feel more joy, and then the adversary cannot use those little things against you.